Welcome back to episode 46 of the Epic Epoch podcast. We're rebranding. It's episode 46. It's the same podcast, the same YouTube channel, and the same Spotify. This will be the Rat City Radio podcast instead. We're rebranding because sometimes you just need a little bit of change in your life. Sometimes you cut your hair, sometimes you get a tattoo, and sometimes you make your podcast look way cooler and cleaner than it used to. I'm your host, PerryThePig. With me as always is my co-host, Dread. Introduce yourself. What's going on, my friend?
Hello, this is Dread, and in today's video topic, we get to finally prove ourselves right from a long time ago. A long time ago when we were making this podcast, we wanted to call it Rat City Radio. Everyone did, except for Perry, and now he has finally been converted.
I was nervous about the premise of a rat, and I was nervous about the inside joke about Rat City not feeling like it's kind of niche, right? But these days, I don't know. I think Rat City Radio, it's totally won me over. We've actually had the podcast going for 2 years now. So 2 years is a good amount of time for Epic Epoch. I liked it. I like the big purple theme. So we still have a nice purple theme going on here. I like the new logo. I like the rat. There's a lot of things I like about it.
It's 1.0. It's new last Epoch. We got to look new for everyone.
It's true. And it's clean. It's really clean, isn't it?
Yeah. So Perry, what have you been up to before patch drops?
All right. So somebody pointed something out. So a lot of people already know that I am a CT. So that means a content creator. No, community tester. So there's a community tester program. There's like a small group of people who test out content beforehand, and they write build guide tier lists so that you know what to play. So I'm technically a part of that CT program, and it's hilarious because over the past 2 weeks, I've been talking to Twitch chat about what do you think is going to happen in the new patch? What do you think is going to be strong? Do you think the boss is going to be hard? And every time that I have these questions, someone in chat pointed out, every time that Perry speculates about something over the past 2 weeks, I'm either leaking information to you or I'm completely lying through my teeth. And you'll never know which one it is. And it's been so much fun. I've talked to developers about it too. They're like, yeah, this is the most fun thing in the world. They're like, I know this is the most fun thing in the world. It's so enjoyable. Yeah. Anyways, I'm looking forward to the patch. It's going to be a good patch.
I'm looking forward to the patch too. Something interesting happened recently. So there was that video you made, right? With me in it, where we were talking about our expectations for 1.1 and all that, and how Herpadur, the timing of it's terrible, which it still is, by the way.
We were shooting the breeze. Yeah, sure, got it. I remember
that. There was a comment on it. It was like, oh, I bet with all the spoilers, Dread's gonna be happy. It's okay after seeing all the 1.1 stuff. He's gonna be happy. It's like I can be happy with. I can be happy with the state of the game, but still hate everything around it. The game itself is great. I've always it's weird because whenever I complain about this stuff, I've always complained specifically about not being able to play the game. That has been the biggest thing I've disliked, is not being able to play the game enough. I don't know. It's just kind of funny. That's all. But yeah, I've been doing great myself. I've been doing a very, very extensive amount of cycle start testing. It is not even funny. I have leveled over, I think 30 to 40 builds from level 1 in a fresh start all the way to end game, 300 corruption or whatever. Obviously I have to stop it somehow so I can continue on. But I have leveled and leveled and leveled, and I've played from bleed shield throw to lightning storm bear to all these different builds I'm so excited about in the coming patch. It's been a long time coming, this patch, because I've just been putting in significantly more work than I normally would, because I wanted to get better at leveling. I wanted to get better at the cycle start stuff, and I also wanted to give more high quality content to YouTube, because I didn't want to just upload videos that was oh, this is what I'm going to do at endgame, but I never give a leveling thing. So I've been adopting a practice where, as I've been leveling the character, I have been making snapshots of it when I make decisions, respecs, or whatever. So there's like 5 planners in each description of my video talking about the leveling process, because that's the closest that I can get to the POB feature where you can like click on it and have the multiple leveling like trees and all that. That's as close as I can get to it right now without having access to something like that.
I have a growing list of builds that I want to try out, and I don't even want to call it like starter builds. These are just like things that excite me, combinations of masteries plus skills plus new items that I want to play with. It makes it it's the feeling. It's that feeling that I used to have in Path of Exile all the time, where I'm just like incredibly indecisive about what I'm going to play. I don't know about you. I love that feeling.
I
so
love
excited.
indecisiveness. I love indecisiveness but 4,800% damage effectiveness is 4,800%.
You are locked in on Avalanche, aren't you?
Yeah, we're good to go. But so speaking of that, the indecisiveness and all that, like I've enjoyed it a lot. It's been nice to be able to kind of like not push every character to an absurd amount of corruption and just like actually, try a bunch of different things out. I think I might do this like concept where I like cycle start test a bunch, like every patch, just so that I have time to play things I normally wouldn't have time to play. Like for instance, I played crit multi-shot for the first time ever. I've played like Reign of Winter. I tried to play Bleed, right? That before all the changes, but like it was the first time I actually ever played crit multi-shot, and people were like, "Wait, really?" I'm like, "Yeah," because like I barely touched Rogue. Marksman was in such a weird state that I didn't want to touch it. But it's been like 3 years since Rogue came out. Like, another thing that you just said, it was about the I don't want to call them cycle starter builds. I know you've been talking about that of late. You want to talk about that more?
About but not calling my build ideas cycle starter builds?
Yeah, like you recently you actually went on a little mini rant.
I did. I didn't record it or anything, but I didn't put it on YouTube.
You should talk about that.
Maybe I should record this and put it on YouTube. So it was something that I say a lot when I'm talking to like new players, people like coming into Last Epoch for the first time, is you only get to be a new player once. You only get to be a beginner one time. And as soon as you start trying to min-max your own experience before you've even logged in for the first time, it's like you're losing one of the best parts about Last Epoch, which is exploring. And you can there's one pain point. Like there's a pain point of the minimum skill level when you respec a skill, but there's workarounds it. We're not going to go on the entire tirade. TLDR, exploring and being a new player in Last Epoch's awesome, because you can make a good build and you can have fun and you can have your own customized experience and enjoy that for a long time before you come to a point where, okay, maybe I want to play a new build, or maybe I want more damage, or maybe I want to go try out something else instead. You don't need to be a pro or someone who has 10,000 hours in the game when you have 0 hours in the game. It's like not that important. So like I've been a Path of Exile player, you have too, a lot of people in the audience have too. Like having a cycle starter or a league starter in Path of Exile is important, because there's a lot of ways to mess up your character, and then you don't have regret orbs, and then you haven't been farming for the right items, and you haven't been looking for the right items, and you fall in a deficit really quickly, and you just have to respec because you literally don't have orbs of regret.
You don't even respec, you just re-level.
Yeah.
And that's like why everyone hates it so much, specifically.
And in Last Epoch, like it's so much more fun to have like an idea of what you're shooting toward, or like here's an idea like that I want to play something with that new two-handed axe. I want to use that two-handed mace. Like I want to be using these like new unique items. You can work toward that in a very broad sense, and the only thing you can't change is your mastery. It's like that's fine. Just go and explore. Go and have fun.
I've after cycle start testing, quote unquote, a bunch of different builds right over the past few weeks, and I've played some stinkers. Let me tell you. Ooh, I played some stinkers. I think I failed 4 warlocks in a row. I think I got them all to like level 70 each one, and I failed each one in a row. That was fun. That was a long time. But like I realized, Perry might be a little bit right. I don't think I really care about like the cycle start thing. Like, cause like I've tried all these builds and they've all done fine, just fine. Like I literally like quote unquote cycle started, multi-shot. It was like, it felt just fine, and now
it's fine. It's totally fine.
Right, yeah. I think I think it's obviously not the best choice in terms of efficiency. There are definitely better choices for efficiency. Like technically, there's like efficient builds to play up until empowered monos, and then you respec into it and stuff like that. Like technically, but like it doesn't really matter in the end. Although I will say 1 to 40, I would just use a leveling build anyways, just because like the biggest problem I noticed this actually. So I was respecing nodes early in the campaign, right? And I noticed a large amount of experience you get is from when you level up. So when you level up, you get a very large amount of experience to all your skills, right? Every single time. But the problem is if you lose those skills, like if you respect them, you lose that experience
Okay,
that
okay,
you
I
just
follow. Got it.
Yeah. So like again, like literally again, respecking in the campaign literally puts you back by miles.
I tell people all the time,
heavily.
I say don't respec your primary source of damage. You've got like 3 or 4 different like skill slots. Respec one of those other ones. Never unspec the thing that you're currently using to deal damage.
Yeah,
so
I'm
gonna go on my own tangent real quick. I gotta interrupt you before we get too far into this, but like I want to say like my heart goes out to people who don't play for 8 hours a day. There's people out there who don't have 4 hours. Maybe they play for 1 or 2, or just like when their kid naps. Because I have a kid that naps, and I understand that dilemma as well. And sometimes you don't want to go it by yourself. Sometimes you want to use a build guide because you don't have enough time to play. And like I understand that. I get it. Hopefully you can enjoy Last Epoch too, and that's why we make build guides, and that's why Dread makes leveling guides, and I get that. But like for the other people, I would say like, you know, I want you to be a new player while you can be a new player, and worry about the details later. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. We just got patch notes yesterday. I read through them and discussed them for 6.5 hours, and then I made my TLDR fastest rundown that I possibly could in 54 minutes. And like 54 minutes to run down everything. Like, oh, I tried so hard to be fast.
I made my TLDR in 20 minutes. So that's because I cut out the Forge Guard rework because I have to make because I'll just make a new video on that. The sorc rework, which will be in the same video, and then I dodged all of the Falconer nerfs because not only am I not qualified enough to do it, Trickster is just going to do it anyways. So I'm just going to link to his video.
I've seen some videos out from Trickster specifically saying like, here's the patch notes specifically for you people out there who play Rogue.
Yes.
And like he just ignored everything else and he only did Rogue. And it's like that's the kind of YouTube video that I want to see pop up in my feed. That's excellent. So shout out to Trickster for that.
Yeah, that was gonna be like that was like it saved me so much time because like all the patch notes were like Falconer nerfs. I was like, yes.
Nerf.
Yes. And like Warlock nerfs, even though like it's so funny because there was a bunch of Warlock nerfs in the patch, okay?
A ton.
But like the Warlock nerfs that I played, like specifically Ignite Warlock, and then the Rattling Gun Warlock with the coal, both those builds got virtually unchanged other than the Global Horde changes. And you know why? Because I played with a Vessel. That's why. And now I'm still going to do just fine with them, which is hilarious.
I've used Vessel of Strife, the health regeneration equals ward thing, in so many build planners over the past 24 hours. I think Vessel of Strife stocks are going to just like skyrocket. People are going to start using this thing way more often.
I have a knack for knowing what's going to get nerfed. So like I usually try to play builds around the nerfs and stuff like that beforehand. Like I try to predict it. And this time I was right on the money this time. Like literally like none of my stuff got touched this time around. It was like some of it even got buffed. Like the shield throw Forge Guard bleed build I was talking about, that got giga buffed. Not only did it get an extra 75% bleed chance, it got the 10% less damage taken, which it didn't have before. It also got the block effect per ring of shields. Like it literally got like boosted significantly, and I'm very proud of my creation that time around.
So would you rather have 75% bleed chance for 5 skill points, or +5 flat crit while using a spear? How close are those? It's like the very first node in the brand new
Well,
Forge Guard skill tree.
you have to use
like
a
5%
spear.
crits?
You have to use a
Spear?
spear. Yeah, you have to use a spear. Although, not to spoil anything, but the new spear that the Plague Dragon's Tongue is like, you know how we were talking about like Serpent's fractal tree as a stat stick?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't even know it, man. Plague Tongue's even a bigger stat stick. It's
The
like
plague
200
plague
flat
so
flat damage and 45% attack speed. And then if you go like Sentinel, you get the 5% base crit on top of the 7% base crit.
It's actually
Like,
huge.
if you actually wanted to die to every single damage over time source and high corruption, but do a lot of damage while doing so, you can do that now.
You can still build armor and get the dot mitigation stuff. Like, come on, don't sell it too short. But that spear,
I
that
think
spear is like
the EHP of the average Sentinel has went down this patch.
I know
It's definitely down.
the spear that we're talking about, the Plague Dragon spear. It's got like 4 lines of text on it that all refer
You
to
ignore
like,
all of those.
It's just like locust, summon locust on hit. Your locust do more stuff. Your locust do this. Like, just delete all those lines of text and realize how good that spear is. How much damage it's got. 47, right? At max.
I like that they're giving us things for the non-minion build enjoyers to enjoy.
Ooh.
Although I don't think many people enjoy Locust right now, I'll be honest.
So I guess as long as we're talking about patch notes and things have been changed broadly, they did say across the board that minions are getting buffed. And they did buff a ton of minions.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of them are getting like twice as much flat health and twice as much flat health per attunement, or like per whatever their corresponding stat is. We actually spent some time on stream looking at forged weapons of all things. There's a new unique ring that allows you to
that ring is so good.
That ring's really good.
Okay, I was talking to Frozen, the yesterday I think, and he was talking about how on his setup he was using a prismatic gaze for the Enigma build, right?
Yeah,
which didn't get nerfed,
crit,
by the way. Very surprising, right? And I was like, why don't you use the rings? And he's like, what do you mean what rings? And I was like, I showed it to him. He's like, how the hell did I miss this? It's like, those rings are so good, man.
The rings are good. The rings do support minions. The rings do support forged weapons. They are interesting. They are cool. And they have flat crit on them. So you could use them for only that 1 line of text. Because that's how LP works.
Harbinger of the Stars died for this.
Oh, but you can have 2 of those rings. Oh, it's so good.
So just to give you an idea of how momentous this moment is, chat, and whoever's watching, the only sources of base crit that have existed for a while now on your gear has been on your weapon for Rune Dagger, the new Avenge 7-fold base, your Catalyst, right, or your weapon. Then there's your helmet with Prismatic Gaze. You get 4% there and some crit chance, right? And we used to have Harbingers of the Stars until it was killed unceremoniously for no reason. And that was like 6% base crit. It was like you had to pay a bunch of mana for it. It was like, that was fair, but whatever. And those were the only sources of base crit on your gear for a long time. So EHG has had a very bad habit of releasing 2-handed weapons with no base crit on them. Because if you're running a 2-handed weapon and you don't have base crit inside your skill, guess what you're forced to use? A Prismatic Gaze, right? But now with the rings, now we don't have to use that stinky helmet anymore.
You could also use the helmet. You could in addition.
Sure, but the problem with the helmet is the LP level.
The LP level. It's a real pain in the ass to farm up a 1 or 2 LP on one of those.
The LP level on the rings are actually pretty fair for what it is.
It's 50, I think, by memory.
Yeah, it's even on a copper ring base. Like, how could you not love it? Yeah.
I don't mind it, but there is a big opportunity cost for using a ring like that. Like, I like that it exists, but I also think it's completely fine, right? Like, you're giving up Osirian, which just got buffed. It gives you more damage and less damage taken. You're giving up a red ring of Atlaria for you Merchants Guild people, even one with the LP on it as well. You're giving up like a Doom ring if you're a melee build. You're giving up a Quicksilver ring if you need more sources of haste. Like, you're giving up something for it. It's not completely free, and I love that.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's going to be absolutely integral to the builds that it's being utilized by. Like, for instance, for the longest of times, I've been wanting to play a crit devouring orb setup with the shadow beacon, right? Where you move the orbs, but you don't like take the node that orbits you, so you get more orbs to teleport around with you, right? You move them around like brands from PoE. The problem with that mace is I'm sure you can guess that it has no base crit on it, and Devouring Orb has no base crit either. And then using a Prismatic Gaze just felt like poop. It just felt awful. But now you can use a Prismatic Gaze. You can use like the rings and a Peak of the Mountain for even more maximum degeneracy.
I
Speaking
can't wait for you to play that instead of me. Yeah.
we should talk about, like, real quick before we move on to the patch notes.
Okay.
We should talk about the dominance of Peak of the Mountain. Like, Peak of the Mountain went from like we thought it was going to be okay to like being literally meta defining at some points. Like Peak of the Mountain is just so ridiculously strong now.
It's really easy to get that thing with 2, 3, or even 4 LP, even if you're in COF. Yeah.
Like for instance, as soon as so a long time ago, Sentinel had lunge, and lunge had crit on it because it was a good skill then. It is no longer a good skill, and it no longer has the crit chance on it. But as soon as they added healing hands to the game, and actually good skill, right? Freaking Peak of the Mountain stonks went up, and every single Sentinel all of a sudden had 300% crit for no investment. It was amazing. It was like the revolution of Sentinel before they removed Hammer and Anvil.
So even the perfect segue, you could still do that right now in patch 1.1 upcoming on Tuesday, even after the ward nerf regarding healing hands, because you could just be a melee build that procs healing hands, and it gives you some healing back.
This was not even thinking about the ward. It was just the healing, because you right?
I want to talk about the node that gives you percentage of missing health on melee attack. That's insane. There's a node at the very beginning of the Sentinel skill tree. It's like generates some mana when you use a basic attack or if you use smite. But now it also, instead of giving you flat health, it gives you percentage of missing health, which is awesome for melee builds, because you're going to be missing some health. You get to restore it. You could even use Peak of the Mountain and setup, or you could just use smite with a Twisted Heart and it gives you percentage of missing health. I might play smite. I don't know. I have no idea when I'm going to league start. God, I'm so excited.
Yeah. And then like Peak is really strong on the new Avalanche setups because you're incentivized to run health regen because of the changes. So all of a sudden you have 700 health regen as a shaman.
Percent health regen per attunement?
No, it's it's one flat per 3 attunement.
Flat health regen per attunement, percent health regen per strength if you're spending those points in the Beastmaster tree. And then you can just like build health regen. You take the new buffed health regeneration blessing that came in patch 1.0, and then you just like
buff, by the way,
my end game planners have like 1600 life regen, and like even getting 1000 is completely reasonable.
On my warlock this patch I hit 1700.
That's so good.
My warlock for the Vessel Strife setup, I hit 1700. It was great. It was phenomenal.
And getting 2000 or even 2400 life plus 4000 ward sounds awesome, because your recovery is going to be really good, and it's even hybrid recovery if you get chunked a lot.
Well, the thing is, what people don't understand with Vessel is the strength of Vessel isn't exactly the EHP it provides. Like, sure, don't get me wrong, that's good and all, but it just says 60% more health regen. If you have 1700 health regen and you have a Vessel for 60%, that is 60% more of that. Of course, that's only when you're missing health, but still,
it totally reminds me of, I don't know if these nodes still exist on Inquisitor and Path of Exile, but there's like some node that made like damage goes past your ward, 50% chance, like Doriani something.
I know what you're talking about. You're talking about the node that allows you to share your health regen with your energy shield, and
that like 50% of damage goes through it, right? Something along those lines. But like those, I used to love those builds, and like the regeneration, and like you felt so tanky in that setup, and like Vessel of Strife basically does that.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to become much more relevant now that they've changed everything, because it barely gets touched by the the freaking changes, because now instead of going for like 7k ward with some ward retention, you just go for like 4k ward and then build up some HP on top of your already busted health regen.
You don't need to have 15,000 ward for your ward build to be good. I'd be shocked if anyone gets 20,000 ward. Like 20,000 ward is a huge amount of ward in the new system for 1.1.
Yeah, I'm sure there will be something. I'm sure they forgot something. Ooh, I'm sure it will happen.
Is it Glacier Lost Knowledge, or is it something else? What do you think?
No, it's going to be the traversal skill thing with mana stacking.
You think so?
Yeah, there's going to probably be some way of spamming. Like, you play a rogue with mana stack and you shift around and you be funny because you're at like 20,000 ward.
Have you seen the new prefix modifier for staves?
Oh my god, it's so good.
At tier 7.
Perry, you can get 300 flat mana on a two-handed staff with just tier 5s.
Because 100 from the implicit, and then tier 7 gives you 200, so it's 300 total.
Yeah.
You have 300 flat mana, and it gives you like 180. Is it 180? Is that it? 180 percentage of
they really want the mana
spent
gained as ward to be a thing, man.
They really want mana spent gained as ward to be one of the ways to generate ward.
I made a meteor planner with it. 1 second. I think it was crazy with it.
I shared this. I shared this with my Twitch chat previously, but there's another content creator, Allie, who's like from the Path of Exile community as well. Mm-hmm. But she's excited to play Meteor, and she's gonna do like the Archmage, the new node in the Sorc tree, which like refunds part of your mana, gives you more AOE. It's got breakpoints at like 300 mana and 1,000 mana, like using that along with Meteor. Meteor is like huge. Meteor deals way more damage than it used to, and you can just like spam cast of it, and you're never gonna run out of mana.
It's funny that
you're not going to run out of mana for a long time.
Never got directly buffed, but the power creep of the game slowly crept around it to the point where it was viable again. I like that.
I think Meteor is going to be sweet. I don't want to play it, but like, Judd, CEO Mox Jet, it's his favorite skill in the game. I'm glad it's finally looking pretty good.
Yeah, remember, I played Meteor this patch, and it was just fine with the reclamation setup. Like, it was like literally the mana strike plus the what is it called? The focus setup, right? Where I was using multiple mana abilities. Like, that build didn't feel bad at all. Like, people like
it was
were
fine.
I had to use mana strike and focus. Right?
I mean, I hear you.
Well,
but
the thing is, Meteor does everything else as long as you spec the mana, right? Like, that's the thing. That's the beautiful. And now that build's even better because now you just throw out mana strike. Right, when you stack your mana,
you just have 1,000 mana with like mana refunded all the time, and mana spent gained is ward.
Obviously, early on, you still want to do that if you're cycle starting Meteor, but like later on, you can get rid of the chains and enter your final form.
All right. I want to ask you though. So we're talking about Sorc. We're talking about like Meteor stuff. Is it true that if I have a volcanic orb that costs more than 40 mana, and it shoots out a whole bunch of shrapnel, if I take that volcanic orb and I put it into a boss, does all of that shrapnel all apply individual spark charges?
Mm-hmm. Okay. It should, unless if like Mike is right.
I don't know. So we have some conflicting information about whether volcanic orb, like in the shrapnel from volcanic orb, actually applies all the spark charges on hit.
I made a Reddit post and none of the devs answered. I tried to
a Reddit post or an Ask the Dev post?
Well, I did both, but Mike said no.
I did both. So. I don't know. I feel like it should, right?
Like the thing is like, so that costs 40 mana or more. I think the problem is I don't think it's supposed to, because if you go and hover over a bunch of these skills, like these sub skills, they actually have mana costs, by the way, if you hover over them. So maybe that's why they shouldn't, but like then like I'll be honest, that node's garbage if was the case.
If it doesn't work with shrapnel, which like the shrapnel stuff sounds so good.
If it doesn't work with shrapnel,
if it doesn't work with the small orbs from static orb, I don't want to play it.
It's just complete garbage, like dead in the water. Yeah, it's just bad.
On the other hand,
cast Meteor, and I got like I don't know, like I got like freaking like 5 spark charges from that. Ooh.
Spark charges are pretty good. Listen, I just the idea of playing a new spark charge build sounds extremely exciting.
Oh, I agree. I just hope that it's weird because I want it to work and because it would be cool, but I know that if it would work, we might as well just bow down to our spark charge overloads at this point, right? Like I'll be honest, at this point, it's just
and you can proc your static orb off of Flame Rush, for example, you can manually cast it. You can get like Lightning Blast to refund your mana. Lightning Blast also applies spark charges. You can use that wand.
You can't. No, you can't. That node does not work with procs.
Oh no, does it not work with procs?
Yep, it does not work with procs. If you proc it off of like something, it does not work.
Huh.
So like if you use the meteor
follow-up
belt,
question.
right?
Follow-up question. Does it work with the Tribo Electra wand, the one that casts your static orb when you use evade?
It should not work. If it doesn't work for Flame Rush, it shouldn't work for that.
Oh no! Oh god. I want to know the answer to these questions. I want to know the answer to these questions and also trust the answers.
My problem with this, okay, the whole issue with this is, why isn't it clear? This is why.
Why don't I know the answer?
This is why Path of Building freaking exists, man. Like it's like I gotta like all these people that complain about, I need to like go to the wiki every single time I put one node into my build. Like this is how it happens. This is how that happens, by having nodes like this that just make no sense, right? Like if it doesn't work with sub skills, put it on the node.
Or like,
if you knew how the game worked, it wouldn't. If you knew how the game worked, it wouldn't work like that.
Like we have thousands and thousands of hours in the game, and we still have no idea how it works. You gotta test it on a 1-by-1 basis. That's the only way you get this kind of information. If you get a result, is it a bug? Do I bug report it?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh my god. Okay. Oh my god. Okay. So I am in the process of making a video where I showcase a lot of people's builds that they're going to be cycle starting with, because I have a lot of friends who play.
Good idea. I like it.
I like it too. And I was speaking to specifically Allweezy. He's in chat. And he had an avalanche like earthquake build he wanted to show me, with like the aftershocks and like doing all the boulder looping and all that, right? And we were trying it out. We were testing it in game real quick, okay? And the node that makes it appear near your totems is bugged. And instead of appearing near your totems, the aftershocks, it appears near your cursor. And we're so fucking confused why it was working that way. And we're like, speaking of bugs, like literally just last night, it's like, I swear to God, I like turn around and there's a bug behind me.
You know what that reminds me of?
Yeah.
That reminds me of Disintegrating Aura. It was like 2 years ago or something. No one knew this was a bug because no one ever played it. But there was a Disintegrating Aura hammer throw bug where if you threw your hammer and the hammer was like in front of you, the Disintegrating Aura damage over time was a block and a half that way. It's like, what?
I remember seeing that. Yeah.
Why is it over there?
Yeah, I remember seeing that. That was great. I enjoyed that.
Now, it's the perfect segue because I am also tempted to league start Disintegrating Aura, because I do like some Hammer Throw, I do like some Void Knight, and they finally gave some extra damage and quality of life to Disintegrating Aura.
And you're heavily disincentivized to play Smite Hammer Throw, so...
Yo, but I want to play Disintegrate. I want to play Void Dot.
Well, I said you're heavily disincentivized, so it's the perfect time to play Disintegrating Aura.
It is. Yeah, I bet it'd be fun.
Yeah.
Huge hipster energy.
Should we talk about that? That's such a big change. Such a monumental change.
Okay.
Because you made that video, right? There was time like the sweet builds in Last Epoch. If you want to explain the premise behind that video real quick.
Sure. You know what? Let me go for like a minute here. So I have a build, probably like 13 sweet builds you can play in Last Epoch. The kinds of things that if you see them on the screen, and even if you're not a Last Epoch gamer, they're going to capture your imagination because they look cool and they're doing big flashy stuff. And Smite Hammer Throw is one of the builds that captured my attention when I was a new player, and it still captures people's attention. So you have the hammers going around you, you lunge into a pack of enemies, and boom, 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 the whole screen explodes. And it kind of lags a little bit, but it's really satisfying with the smites and the lightning tendrils stuff. So the keen affix on your idols is the one that allows you to proc smites off of your throwing hits. And it used to be 4 to 9% chance to proc, and now it's 10 to 25% chance to proc. And 25% chance, you can get 4 of them, so you can get a 100% chance to proc. But they're capped with an internal cooldown. And the internal cooldown is 10 procs per 2 seconds, which is basically 5 procs per second. So can you cast 5 per second. Yeah, it's a lot of cast speed, but having them automated off of, hammer throw, or having them automated off of something like shield throw, where you also get the benefit of capping your armor for free, is pretty enticing. So, Dread, you're pretty down on this. I think it's a good change to have in the game. Go ahead.
I think it's a good change. I just think it's like, so there's like a moment in a movie that I love. Okay, I think it's in Pirates of the Caribbean 3 at World's End. Okay, where freaking Jack Sparrow and Barbossa, they're sitting next to each other. Okay, and they see that the Kraken is dead, like the Kraken because they killed it or whatever, right? And they were like, Barbossa's like, wow, it really feels like the world's smaller, doesn't it? Right? And then Jack is like, no, the world isn't smaller. There's just like less in it. And that's how I feel about this smite hammer throw like stuff. It's like it feels like as though it's still there, but it's like a ghost of its former self. It's never going to be as good as it was. And it's was it really good enough to like merit a nerf? Was it like all this and all that? And then we also had this on top of compounding about the rumors about all the stupid proc changes that never even came, right? We had the Zeitgeist, the boogie monster of like the procs all being changed and all that. Like it's just crazy. It's just, yes, I do.
I know Pirates of the Caribbean 3 by heart.
It's
yeah,
like my favorite. It's like my favorite movie series ever. It's my favorite.
All right, so for hammer throw, I imagine different scenarios against like where you're dealing good damage. So something like the old Lagan fight where he has like the biggest character model in the world. It was insane how many times you could proc your smite against him with your hammers rotating around your character. On the other hand, with like the new Lagan fight, you're only fighting.
That's a good question. Wait a second. Wait, before we move on, is it per or is it
per
globally?
Idol?
If it's per idol, we're being stupid.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Why? Why do we not know? Why do we not know? Is it per idol or not? Because if it's per idol, sure, whatever, right? But like.
First of all, I have no clue. It's a great question.
No clue either.
On the other hand, I think it's not per idol. I think it's I think it's how you or I are understanding it.
Yeah, but the chance that it isn't, and we're just looking dumb right now, right?
So it's good for performance in order to cap these things, not having unlimited procs. Also, when you're having like a small enemy, like think about tier 4 Julra. She's really not a very good or a very big character model. Having 5 hits per second sounds completely fine. And I think in a lot of cases, like most, maybe even every single case, this is going to end up as a net buff for your character.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a better way of going about it than going the other proposed way where you make it so you actually spend Smite's mana cost.
Oh my god, no.
If you wanted to go with the lightning nodes, you would be out of mana constantly. So I think this is a change. Like they talked about this. I think it was Kissing that talked about this, where they were going to make like the procs more fair, and Smite Hammer Throw is one of the ones on the list. So this has been a long time coming for a while now, but it's just like now that it's finally come and gone, it's like I will play a Hammer Throw build next patch. I will test it.
It'll feel totally fine.
I think it'll feel totally fine. I'm gonna test it, obviously. I think what it means though is you don't need to invest into throwing attack speed as much. You don't need that much anymore. Like you're good. Like you don't need that much throwing attack speed because.
So maybe your rings are like -3 mana cost.
Yeah.
Like, damage.
It does open up options, right? Like you can still go devotion. You can still go like the void stuff. Like, did they fix the void thing? Are they like void bolts now instead of lightning bolts?
No, that's not been fixed.
Oh why did they do this first and not that? Like,
I don't know. No, so that's the lightning tendrils off of Smite. They scale with vitality.
I can imagine like what Curse Boy just said. I can imagine Curse Boy just said, out of all the procs, Smite Hammerden was not one needing a nerf though. Seems like a change for a server. I can imagine
I don't think it's a nerf though. I can imagine
Mike and Judd and they're like just sitting in like a room, and they're like looking at their server graph, and they're seeing that it's taking more like CPU or whatever. They're like, God damn it, someone's playing hammer throw.
Oh, those pesky Sentinel builds. We should remove their hammer and anvil stance.
Yeah.
So I'm going to segue because I'm good at it. Let's go Sentinel builds losing out on hammer and anvil stance. It's not the only one. There are other masteries as well who are losing access to some of their defenses. We have hammer and anvil stands for like high-end Sentinel builds, like the Anvil Rive build that I played previously. You have the loss.
You have to rename that thing, man.
It's true. I'm just going to delete the video.
Or you should just keep the name just as like a protest.
We have Cold Fire Cold, Rowan's Frostguard from
Oh my
Master.
God. You know
the
what?
30% DR has been removed altogether.
If I'm living in a world where like if they had to trade, like they're like, we want Rowan's Frostguard to go away, and they're like, well, you got to take away Hammer and Anvil then. Fair trade. I'm completely fine with that.
You're okay with
being
that?
able to play Runic Invocations again without having to fear the Zet guys behind me, you know, the boogie monster, if someone commenting on my video, but you should be using CFC instead, right? Not having that anymore is gonna be great.
Now, the Cold Fire Cold probably gives you about 100 ward per second. It might still be worth, like, if I were playing a Frostbite, Frostclaw build, for example, I would still use Rowan's Frostguard right now.
See, Curse Boy, that's the thing. They did buff all the other Runic Invocation spells by consequence of removing Raelins, right?
Like, I don't agree with that.
Oh, I agree, but that is technically a buff because now you can actually look at them and be like, I might use them now.
No. they could buff like 30 of the Runic Invocations without disrupting anything.
Well, yeah, I'll be honest, like the problem is like instead of like releasing 30 plus skills that are barely even usable, maybe they should have like maybe made like 8 invocations and made them all usable. I don't know. Maybe I'm the crazy one, but maybe releasing like 50 skills in one patch and not having an accountant go through and check the numbers was a bad idea.
Runic Invocation is an awesome skill. They missed some of them. I think it's fine to miss some of them.
I mean, I think it's fine that they missed the damage part because that could always be fixed when they get around to it.
And then like, that's what patches are for. That's why we play a live service game instead of a game that just like releases once and you're done with it. Like they should be buffed someday. And until then, I'll just go play Sorc instead. So we're talking about DR real quick. We're talking about the loss of Hammer and Anvil stance on every Sentinel build. So you have even less options for defense than you had before. They're kind of squishy, but they have a lot of leech. Fortnite. CFC, Rowan's Frostguard as a Rune Master is no longer there. And sneaky little change that I missed out on because I don't have reading comprehension is Acolyte has less access to defense than they did before because gaining bone armor's been nerfed, and then like the access to bone armor, the scaling options and something like transplant have been nerfed. So just like a tiny nerf there, not as big as the other two, but still a couple defenses that
it was inconsistent DR, but it was still DR.
It still counts. I like it. But on the other hand, they nerfed the aggro range or the attack range of the most frustrating monsters in Last Epoch, so maybe it's okay. There are some really good changes.
That is a blessing to melee builds.
They're so good. They're so good. And this is something that like new players don't understand how good it is. But like someone who's got thousands of hours in the game, you scroll down to the very bottom of the patch notes where all the garbage information is, and you see that the attack range of the Osprix Light Mage has been lowered.
It was like halved at least.
Yeah,
it was like around
it's so
halved.
good. Like I won't just die to them before I see them. That's great.
I think the problem is like, so it's funny. So whenever I talk about Last Epoch, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, Last Epoch is such a nice, casual, like friendly game, and like it's so relaxing when I play it. It's fun." And I'm over here, I'm like, you know, like the meme. It's like the speed running meme, because the stupid freaking Osprey Light Mages, you know, it's
They're
like
coming for you.
Yeah, and it's like because the meta way of going through a monolith is killing a pack and moving on, but you tend to collect a very large amount of Osprix Light Mages on your ass when you do that, and they had insane range. But now you're about half of them, which is still a lot, but still half of them.
Now, speaking of having half as many monsters as we used to have, they made another change that should hopefully make people feel even happier about blasting their monoliths. Not only do we have more stuff to do in the monoliths because we have like the whole nemesis system and the eggs
Nemesis
and these
looks
traveling
great,
times,
yeah.
but they increased the chance that the mobs that spawn are going to be in greater density. So you're going to have bigger packs of monsters, more crabs that you get to detonate, that have them explode. I love killing crabs for some reason, but like, yeah, the echoes should feel more dense than they used to.
I'm gonna clip that out of context.
Weird, but okay, I'll take it. I love that. I like killing monsters in Last Epoch when we have more density. I think that's like the #1 complaint that I would latch onto.
That was such a crazy time in Last Epoch before the favor system existed, because remember how I was such
killing
a staunch,
no monsters.
Yeah, being annoyed by that.
Mm-hmm.
I had people tell me that they were happy with that. I'm like, who are
killing
you?
no monsters?
Yeah, who are you?
That's terrible.
Why are you playing this game?
I want
the
to
whole
kill
point
monsters.
of this is to kill monsters. What happened? What happened to you that made you not enjoy ARPGs?
It's a hack and slash game where you run past the monsters and don't do anything. No, the favor change really did help alleviate that.
Yeah. Speaking of, it was funny. So I made a video. I was like, 2 changes that saved Last Epoch for me, right? One of them was the favor change where you actually kill monsters and actually get stuff, right? And the second thing was how giving every single boss a billion HP now with the new corruption system made boss DR almost non-existent for most people, and then they went and just added it back in anyways. That made me annoyed. I was like, oh my god, I don't have to deal with this anymore because bosses actually have HP now, and like it's not stupid anymore. And then like they're just gonna add it back
how
in.
do you think you're gonna react to seeing or to interacting with the new boss DR ward system? How do you think you're gonna react? Maybe tell me about as a low level player and like a high level player. What do you think it's gonna feel like?
As a low-level player, I have my pillow ready and I have my auto clicker ready, and then I will take a nap. As a high-level player, I will have my pillow ready and I will take a nap.
You think it's gonna be that bad?
Well, the thing is like it depends, obviously, but like the thing is like we already have bosses with 700% more health and damage. Why do we need this on top of that? Like the health scaling now meets up with player damage appropriately now, in my opinion, other than niche cases. And now you're gonna have like bosses with 700% more health and damage. They haven't talked about anything about changing the base health of bosses, by the way, on this change, right? Like the DR is still like the ward stuff, like that's going to be based on 700% more health and damage bosses. And
aren't all the bosses losing health to compensate for this? Like, shouldn't they be
Are they?
approximately? Shouldn't they all be about as tanky as they used to be?
Did they say that? I would hope that they did. I don't.
Chat, you got to help me out. I think they said that the boss
I
fights should
don't
be
remember
approximately as hard
hearing
as they
anything
used to be.
about that, but I also don't watch every single dev blog ever.
You don't
See,
watch?
They didn't do anything. They didn't do anything. See, Curse Boy's on it. Yeah, they aren't losing
didn't
health.
do anything.
See?
So the bosses are going to be like
in
much
theory,
tankier than they used to be?
Yeah, they are going to be significantly tankier than they used to be if you want to just blast with their HP. It is actually worse than the old boss DR system, because the old boss DR system, you could cull the boss when it gets that dumb phase where like it takes no damage or whatever, right? You can't even do that now. You literally can't even do that because he's just going to have like 15 health bars. So like I know the changes to clear communicate, but like I said, it removes the kind of like cheese we had with the coal, right? And all that. It's like, I don't know. I liked the solution that they accidentally fell upon by just making bosses actually have HP. Like I don't know. I thought that was an elegant change.
Having boss DR is like this hidden mechanic that new players just didn't know existed, and you didn't have a clear reason to understand why the boss was taking less damage, and like it messed with your leech as well because you were leeching less when you got to the difficult part of the fight. Like it was a hidden mechanic. Wasn't explained anywhere, and now they're getting rid of it. Like I like that.
Well, now it's in front of our faces, and now they're gonna have like hundreds of Reddit posts about it.
Why is this here? Why is the boss cape getting more?
I think my favorite, like there's a skit for like RPG.
Is it a Pirates of the Caribbean skit?
No, it is not.
Oh, okay.
It's a skit where like the dude is fighting a boss, and the boss like chugs a potion, right? Well, and the dude's like,
He's like,
"Wait,
wait,
why'd you do that? What the heck? What? You're not allowed to do
that's
that."
cheating.
And then he pauses the game and like chugs a bunch of potions himself, and it's like sees nothing wrong with that. It's the same thing here. I don't think it. I legitimately don't think the boss ward system matters at all. Like, it doesn't. It doesn't matter, right? Like, who cares? Who gives? Yes, 600 corruption is efficient to farm favor. You know why? Because I was there doing it this patch. That's why I stayed around 700.
Should we have new affixes in the game that say like you deal bonus damage against armor or like bonus damage against ward, and then we get like new monsters that have ward. It seems very similar to like Death Must Die. Like, can we get that in there as well? Bonus damage.
That would be cool. Yeah, just give me like an item like that, and although I'd probably put it on every single character. The thing about the boss stuff though, I've become a better person over the past few years when it comes to this.
Tell me.
And I've realized it doesn't fucking matter. You know why it doesn't fucking matter? Because 99% of my time spent playing Last Epoch is running away from Osprey's light mages. And then the other 1% of the time is me fighting a boss. Okay? Who cares if the boss takes 4 minutes if like, you know, my monos go like 30 seconds each, right? Like, who cares? Like, legitimately, like I actually had this realization recently. I was like, I was playing a bunch of different builds that had a little bit less single target, like the Shield Rush Flame Burst build I was playing had a little bit less single target than I was used to. But like, I realized I'm not losing any time. This is actually the fastest time clear to 300 I've had. I got to like level 1 to like 170 corruption in like one play session, because it turns out boss HP doesn't fucking matter because you just zoom through monos instead.
As long as you can detach yourself emotionally from having low single target damage, then totally.
You just go watch something on the side. Like, literally, like one time I was playing Last Epoch, and for the whole session I watched like a whole like, I think it was like 8-hour video on the history of EVE Online, a game I've never played and probably will never play, but it was interesting to say the least. It's
somebody I had a dev hanging out in chat, and somebody else asked me, hey, what's the fastest way to get to empower monoliths? And I said Netflix. just kind of zone out, you know, put something up on the second monitor. And I think that's still the right way to go. Just like, you know, it's a hack and slash game. Yeah, sometimes you're afforded the ability to just zone out. And that's a feature, not a bug.
So I like what C2 said. He said, this is all fun in games, but the new COF bossing trait kind of matters in the discussion. Like, does it? Are you getting COF bosses fast enough?
150% drop chance for stuff.
So are you like getting bosses enough for you to actually feel the time? Because like, I don't. I usually sit around 1,000 corruption. Like, if you go more than that, maybe, but like, I don't get bosses enough for me to like feel that. Like, do you, Perry? Do you feel like bosses are a legitimate amount of your time per day playing Last Epoch? I don't think so, right?
I see where they're coming from. Like, you can ramp up your stability to a boss pretty quickly, especially with the introduction of the new Glyph of Envy, right?
I mean, if you want to do that, then like, you know, you just do what Cyborg does and just bring out the firepower, right? It's like there are ways of doing it. Like,
so this entire conversation is predicated on like, do we feel as though bosses are going to be harder in 1.1 as they are in 1.0?
That's the thing. The HP doesn't make them harder. It just makes them more of a snooze fest. Because if you're playing the right build, if you're playing the correct setup, you don't die to the boss, right? It's not scary. It's just boring.
Bosses can be scary like when you're under geared or when you're fighting it the first time, if you don't know the mechanics, if your character kind of stinks. Like,
me walking to the end of the, like, me doing Bone Daddy, okay? And walking to the edge of the screen or using a Rebuke or something or Profane Veil to dodge the big explosion every single time. It's cool and all after the first few times, but after like hundreds of Bone Daddies, like, it's just out of my mind. It's just like, it's just boring. And like, don't get me wrong, that's just because of us for playing so much. But at the same time, it's like making the boss fight longer doesn't make it more hard. It just makes it boring. The only difficulty is not falling asleep at the keyboard. That's the real difficulty. It's not slipping up.
So your impression of the new boss DR system at early in the game, and then as a late game character, like level 95 plus, you think in both scenarios it's just going to increase boredom. You don't think it's going to be the same. You don't think it's going to be better. You don't think it's going to be interesting.
Some of my favorite times bossing in Last Epoch have been when I have barely any gear. I'm up against like a blood Orbis or whatever, like shade, and like he's got all the ridiculous freaking option, like all of the stupid stuff, like Oblivion Dash, the blood orbs that are invisible for some reason still, like all these things that like he's dangerous. Some of my favorite times have been when he's just dangerous, but like he didn't have that much HP. I killed him in a minute, but it was still fun because it was dangerous and it felt like there was something on the line here. And now, but then like when I go and do Bone Daddy with like 1000% more health and damage, I'm just like, it's like the World of Warcraft meme. It's like the meme where he's like just sitting there clicking.
Sure. I felt like I was part of the meme, just watching you for a second there.
You are part of the meme. Yeah.
All right. So patch notes. We segued through a couple good things I mentioned there. What else is on your mind specifically? Like I know you're high on Avalanche. It's got huge damage effectiveness.
I can go look at my list
of builds you want to play.
Of planners. I have like 10 planners already. Like I've been busy.
I've been looking at some really tanky builds for Shaman.
Storm Totem.
Storm Totem?
I have a planner. It was funny. I was watching you like wow, Dread is still an Ellie hater even after all these hype notes.
Dread, do you hate Last Epoch?
Ooh, yeah, of course. Yeah,
Weird.
Of course. Yeah.
All right, so Storm Totem. Are you Storm Totem with Gathering Storm, or are you Storm Totem without Gathering Storm?
I think the Gathering. Okay, so I was talking about it on stream and with people, and I was like, if they needed to slap an 80% less cast speed multiplier to that node, that means that Gathering Storm is really strong. Okay. Like, obviously, it is, because you get the more damage per mana, you get the pen, you get the more damage, and that's all multiplicative with Storm Totem's tree as well, which is why it's got nerfed. The problem is you're playing a minion build with one minion, right? Because if you're playing Storm Totem,
and it's casting one Storm Bolt.
Yeah, and it doesn't have the best AoE ever, so that means that like, in theory, your clear speed is going to be actually doggy-doo. It's going to be actually doggy-doo. Like your clear specifically. It's going to feel like, in theory, this is my fear. I don't know if it's actually like that, right? I haven't played with it, obviously. But like, I'm not CT, so I haven't played it. That wasn't a joke. But like, so like if it feels bad, sure. But I'll be honest, I don't even care about that node. Screw that node. I care about the 100% more health, more damage, and more
with the Thunder Totem.
And did you know they sneak this into the patch notes? There's actually totem duration at the top of there's totem duration at the top now. There's literally
which allows you to punch it more with your upheaval, right?
Yeah, and there's a lot of other reasons for that. Like for instance, the way you make Maelstrom do single target damage in this day and age of 2024 is to put it on a totem and use those nodes. And the problem is like the duration of totems isn't long enough to like support that playstyle sometimes. But with the increased duration on that and the increased duration on your healing totem, thorn totem things, right, and all that, that's enough. That's like a 30-second thorn totem right there.
You want to play a build where you place down totems next to enemy and then you cast your Maelstrom on the totems.
Yes, because it does a lot of damage.
Okay.
Yeah. So like I'm happy that
sounds like a clunky clear speed. But
also as well. No, it's not actually. So you use so what you do, it's actually not that bad. So what you do is you put down the totem, okay?
Right.
Then you cast Warcry for 4, and then you use the Beneath. And then you move on, and then that's it, because it just kills everything.
Okay.
It's actually not even that bad. I've actually played this before. It's not that bad.
I remember that you actually played this before, so I know that you have some expertise on it.
And well, the totem duration too is like Upheaval Totem isn't
Mhm.
going to feel like absolute dog, because Upheaval Totem, if you don't know, it has like an 8-second duration, and the problem with that is that's awful, right? That's just straight up awful. But now with the 50% by the way, percentile, now like it's like I'm trying to find it. I think it's like where is it? 8 seconds? That's 12 seconds. A lot of Primalist buffs for totems and stuff like that are duration based, specifically the one where they buff each other if they're sitting next to each other, right?
Mhm.
Like, just, I mean, I don't even care about the 2 million crit thing, Zeker. The damage is cool, don't get me wrong, but I care more about my totem not dying instantly the moment I put it down. Like, I care way more about quality of life for these builds than damage, because damage is always going to be a given when you actually build your character correctly. It's always, the problem always becomes quality of life. Like, is this actually fun to play? Like, is it fun to summon a bunch of thorn totems, sacrifice them for upheaval totem, and then have your upheaval totem die after 4 seconds, which was the original duration, by the way, and then they bumped it up to 8, and now with the 50% duration, it goes up to 12, which is so much better. An upheaval totem might actually be playable next match, and I'm so happy. Oh,
Can I sit here for 8 hours
oh,
at a time killing monsters with this thing? Do I want to still play the game afterward?
yeah. It's like, does Dredd hate last epoch? No, he does not. It's like
All right, so we talked about some Sentinel stuff. We talked about a couple sorc things.
Speaking about clunky, Serpent Strike.
Oh my god. So we're okay. This is a good time to pause. So we have a second bonus piece of content coming for you on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central. We will be having a extra podcast with Mike from EHG. We'll have him on. Got some questions for him. If you have extra questions that you want to see specifically for this podcast, asking Mike, be sure to drop them in the Discord, either Dred's Discord or for myself. During that, we're gonna ask Mike, what's the plan for Serpent Strike? Because apparently he's league starting Serpent Strike in patch 1.1. Is this thing good? It deals bonus damage, more damage per stack of poison and frostbite on enemies with no cap.
Yeah, it's 3. Apparently, in the patch notes, it said 2. It said 1% to 2%, but apparently it's 3 to 6.
Oh.
So in the actual planner, and Mike said specifically and asked the devs, trust the planner first, the patch notes second, because the planner pulls from the game
As opposed to being just like human text that someone typed in. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I trust the game in this regard, and of course if it changes, like who cares? I don't think there's much of a difference between 1% more damage per frostbite and poison and 3%, considering you're going to have a lot. Yes, infinite damage scaling, technically, that is correct. Now, whether or not you will live to see the tail of that, I don't know, considering you're a druid this time around, and you did lose aspect of the boar, which was one of your biggest defensive layers. So
do you have to be a druid? Can I play this as a beastmaster?
You want to play a druid because you want to not have to use a spear.
Gotcha.
Also, a part of the problem is you want to play this is just my planner. Obviously, if someone else has a better idea, go right ahead, right? But for my planner, I went with tornadoes to apply the poisons and frostbites, right? And I'm also using a new spicy tech, a Polaris, for extra stacks as well in my offhand. And that plus the tornadoes will be enough to apply all my poisons and frostbites for me. And it's funny because I might actually have enough poisons and frostbites on that setup to just clear with the poisons and frostbites. I don't even have to touch the venom stuff, right? It's kind of funny because like you reach a critical mass eventually, right?
Interesting. So you'd be a poison frostbite build that like clears small monsters with those, and then for single target, you're using like the it's called like Serpent Venom. If they buffed it from 300 flat damage to 400 flat damage, and has a maximum stack size of 1, right?
Yeah, but you doubles the speed, you get the more damage for crit multi, you get the more damage per poison frostbite, which is uncapped, which is weird because they've had this weird love-hate relationship with capping and not capping. Like you have this node and like summon bear that caps to 30% for 30
I feel like when something has like potentially uncapped damage, it's our responsibility. Like it's our duty, isn't it? Just like break it in half.
I agree. Yeah, there you go. Just beat it into the ground.
And maybe Mike feels the same way.
Wait, the thing is though, if you think about it, okay? If you think about it, the biggest thing that I hated about the old Serpent Strike, right, was it lost the class fantasy of playing a fast attacking poison build like we used to play it. But this is kind of like re-emerge that playstyle by giving us that uncapped node, because the faster you attack and the faster you apply poisons and stuff like that in frostbites, you will deal more damage. So we kind of have that back in kind of a roundabout way. And let's put it like this: if it's like ticking for like 4 million on the dummy, who cares? It's Servant Strike. You know,
Maybe a melee build is allowed to deal good damage.
The problem is like, sadly, with everything uncapped, eventually the power creep gets around to it to break it.
And then they'll nerf it later. Like, again, we just talked about, like, this is a seasonal game. It's got
like,
cycles,
if they
it's
literally
got patch
said
notes.
like 0.5% and then quadrupled it high health or whatever, that still would have been good, by the way.
Sure. No, I think it's fine. Like, give us something cool now, and if someone breaks it, if it gets popular, if people see what the technology is, then you can decide whether you want to nerf it or not. Good. I like it. Don't give me pre-nerfed items. I don't want it. So what items are you interested in taking a look at? I know we've seen the Plague Dragon is the huge two-handed spear that for some reason we're excited about. We've talked a little bit about two-handed maces.
Excited is a strong word.
And it's got damage on it. I was thinking about it for forged weapons, but we'll see about that. Do you want to talk about Event Horizon, or do you want to talk about anything else instead?
I like the new base types. Let's talk about the Scepter that gives you 9% base crit. What the
Scepter?
heck is that?
All right, so this was only available in lastdebugtools.com. This was not technically in the patch notes. It wasn't described in the patch notes. So you only know about this if you've been watching content creators or been hanging out in Twitch chat or something. So this, or I guess you could look at the website yourself. So there's new base types, and they say like this has a chance to be upgraded when you kill a Harbinger. So you need to find that base type, you need to have it equipped, and then kill a Harbinger. It will upgrade into like a new implicit modifier. And some of these modifiers are crazy. There's modifiers for percentage of health gained as endurance threshold. There's modifiers for damage spent gained as mana. Or sorry, mana spent gained as ward. There's modifiers, like you just said, for 9 base critical strike chance.
There's
but it's on a scepter.
60% mana gain base as ward, like mana spent gained as ward on like a wand.
Yeah, there's frenzy effect, there's haste effect, there's really cool new implicits. This kind of feels like version 2 of the experimental affixes on like gloves and belt boots.
Yeah, item I'm actually excited for is Cruelty. So if you don't know, Cruelty is a new relic that's coming in this patch that allows you to sacrifice your minions automatically after 2 seconds, and then if you have any mana left, then you spend mana equal to 53 to 89% of sacrifice's mana cost. Otherwise, this cast of sacrifice deals 80% less damage. I like that way of procs. Holy crap, that is the way to balance it around.
Kind of wordy, but really good.
And the reason why is because there's been an archetype that I've been wanting to play for a very long time now. And it's called the Doombrand Necromancer. So the idea here, what you do here, so
in Dreadshade,
Doombrand. Yeah. So there's a node called Doombrand in Dreadshade, and the way it works is that whenever you summon minions there or whatever, it applies Doombrand to them, and it's a dot that ticks them, and then when they die, they do like a little mini necrotic explosion. And you can scale that, and you can use that as your own damage, right? So
it's got good scaling built into it, yeah.
Yeah. Now the problem with it is, I'll be honest, the actual Doombrand just isn't fast enough. It just isn't fast enough, even when you try to try it and all that. So what the thing about sacrifice is they automatically sacrifice after 2 seconds. So you just summon like 5 zombies. Those 5 zombies pop, they have Doombrand, they go on the boss, they pop with the Doombrand, right? And deal damage. Even if you're out of mana, this will still work because the Doombrand doesn't care about your mana, the sacrifice does, right? And then it'll create all those little worms. It'll create like 10 worms, which then get sacrificed as well, which doesn't do any damage because the mana thing, right?
But
or whatever.
the Doombrand?
Yeah, but the Doombrand will. And you just go around, you put dread shade on things, and then summon some minions with like maybe like the specifically, maybe the the zombie rings, maybe.
Maybe the
And
potion
then
belt. Oh,
yeah, the only that got nerfed, by the way. It went from
still usable.
It is
still usable.
The only problem I foresee with this setup is I don't know if there's going to be the ability to like. I don't know if you can build enough mana regen to have enough mana for half a second to be able to cast Dread Shade consistently. That is
Can you
like
drain life on your minions to get mana back?
You can. That would work. Yeah, you can do that. It will work and all that. It's just more like, will it feel good to play? That's the question.
Someone is going to absolutely love that build. That's going to be
now,
someone's favorite build.
What you can do now is you can just walk around with the 2 zombie rings, and you can just right click on mobs with Dread Shade and then have things die. Right? Like essentially, and then build your own spell crit and all that. I don't know how good this is. So if you play this and it's awful, it's not my fault. But it's something that I want to try.
I do think that relic that you just described there, like the auto sacrifice thing, that's my vote for most abusable. I think if anything,
I agree.
I think if anything dumb happens, it's gonna be that item right there.
Oh, it's gonna get like, okay. You want to hear something fun?
Go on.
Okay. So when you use the zombie rings and summon zombies,
yes,
right, and you have the sacrifices, you have if you go through and you look at blood specters on sacrifice, it does not say you have to be positive mana to summon them.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. And you can use, the traversal thing. That'll come again. Maybe they should just nerf that, huh?
Maybe they just shouldn't have ward gain per missing mana work with negative mana.
Wait, I feel like I've seen this episode before.
What? Is this a rerun?
It is a rerun, and now I have dibs on it. So
that's hot. I like it.
And instead of using harvest, I'm actually going to have damage.
So I'm planning on doing a build contest. So I'm gonna do one on Friday. I haven't announced the build contest formally yet.
It's gonna be on Grim Constitution.
I
right?
haven't told people what unique item or what skill or what new reworked thing we're gonna be working with for the build contest. But I'm planning on doing it about 3 days after launch. So it'll be happening on Friday. What unique item stands out to you as something that I might want to keep my eyes on? As you brainstorm, I'll tell you that. Well, I'll tell you that there's a couple that I'm looking at, but I'm going to give an honorable.
It's got to be Aberrath's Command, right? There's no way it's not Aberrath's.
It's a cool. Command. I like Aberrath's Command.
Dude, like you got to do Aberrath's Command because like the thing is, you can play it on a non-sentinel because like you just use the area and that's good for you, right?
Yeah, but like, that's not so interesting though, is it?
I mean, there's the stupid Doom Pulse thing, but like the Doom Pulses don't have good added damage.
So I actually like the looks of it's like a two-handed weapon. I think it's a spear that says your added melee damage gets added as spell damage to cold and void spells.
That is the
that's so
Bane
cool.
of Winter. Bane of Winter.
I love the sound of that.
Something I noticed that people didn't notice when they looked at this stuff is if you go to the LE tools, it says dropped by Harbinger of blank, and then specifically Bane of Winter drops from the Age of Winter Harbinger.
Yeah.
So
presumably that's like the Harbinger in empowered monoliths. Yeah, exactly.
And you can target farm them. Well, it says level 82, so in theory it could be in the level 90 zones, like this one.
So you fight one Harbinger in your unempowered monoliths, and then presumably after that you're only doing your farming in empowered. So it's basically empowered only. Yeah. Not technically, like basically.
Yeah, but like, the Bane of Winter one's interesting because it's giving me like what is it called? The one, it's like Reign of Winter, but like on a melee skill.
Yeah, so, and you can use it on Avalanche. You could use it on what's a cold spell? Cold Static Orb with Mana Strike. Well, like there's options for this.
And this is just generic added flat. So if you for some reason have a lot, for some reason, smoke blades. There's like a lot of ways to utilize this, which I like. It's like one of those items that just makes me feel warm inside because I look at it and I'm just like, there's so many different ways for me to play with this.
That's the kind of item that I'm looking for. So you mentioned one other, and we're at an hour and a half at this point. We're gonna start wrapping up, So we'll talk about like a few more things. You mentioned a shield that says you gain a bunch of ward based on your health, and it also says you don't gain ward. You cannot gain ward while you're in combat. Do you think that shield is going to have an impact on the meta of Last Epoch?
Okay. Yes and no. For bosses, absolutely not. For clear, maybe. Because in clear, there are times where you're out of combat. For when you're on a boss, hell nah. No, you're not. You're not out of combat constantly. Maybe on Bone Dragon, technically. You could be technically out of combat.
You could like walk away from him, wait for some seconds, and then generate some ward.
I think Bone Dragon's the way, but like, who cares, right? Like, but yeah, I think it's gonna be a shield you put on while you're clearing. So, like for instance, a good example of this is Arborist from a long time ago. He used to play the bugged version of the flurry, like the poison bleed flurry. You remember the one that deletes bosses and stuff like that? And it is defined actually. In combat is defined, which we'll define it in a moment here. But essentially, he would run a Banishment of Honor while clearing monoliths because he didn't need damage. And then as you go to like a boss, he just swapped to another weapon and just like degenerately destroyed the boss, right?
I think that's a fine way to go about it too. Like, you know, if you're at that point where you know what the boss's patterns are, if you're fighting the brand new pinnacle boss and you're already, you know, a master of it because you've done it 100 times, maybe you just switch in your DPS setup for that part of the fight.
Because like the Grim Constitution isn't supposed to be for bosses. It's supposed to defend you against random stray, freaking what are they called? The Osprix bolts.
I'm a big fan of this new shield existing. I don't think it's going to make much of an impact. I feel the same way about it as I feel about like the Cuckoo, for example. Like the Cuckoo, it's got a haste implicit and it turns into a random item. It's super interesting to have that kind of item in the game. I love how it interacts with the systems. I like that it exists. Maybe we get more stuff in the future like that. But like, is it an item that I ever care about? No, not really. Marrowphage, I used to have the same opinion about Marrowphage as well. Like Marrowphage, super interesting item. Love how it interacts with the rest of the systems in the game. But for Marrowphage, I think it's actually a good item. So,
yeah, I think it's a cool item. I think it will see use. I think I will probably use it when I want to push corruption for some reason, because pushing corruption, you can kind of like since when you're pushing corruption, you can kind of like take your time a little bit. You can kind of like, pre-plan things. And this is perfect for the kind of person that like wants to push really, really, really high corruption, because like you can play a monolith slow and take your time and do it exactly in a way where like you
can slow down stuff. Who are you?
I know,
right? Who am I talking to right now?
I know, right? Ooh. See, this is why I don't push corruptions, because I have to slow down.
Got it.
Unless I played Falconer, then I didn't, but
All right, so we got a good question that just popped up in Twitch chat, and I'm going to use this as a way to kind of slow down and get toward the end of this podcast here. So we have, we appreciate the new amulet. The new amulet, Nihilus, amazing. We could do an entire podcast on that, but we're not going to. So the question that popped up in chat is, I'd love to hear what you're planning for running at cycle start, and what's like an intriguing class that you're interested in checking out. So, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'm playing Avalanche because it has big numbers,
and you're planning on solving your mana with like the Spriggan trick. So you're gonna swap into Spriggan for 6 seconds, regenerate mana for free,
build max mana because I'm stacking attunement anyways.
Yep, I got
because of the regen. Very, very interesting way of going about it. Lets you spam a lot of avalanches. I hope I'm less afraid of my character and more afraid of my FPS at this point.
What's a class that you're excited to try as like a second or third character? I really want to try specifically, let's look here. I want to play the Black Blade of Chaos because I think it's going to be a fun item. I don't know the anime rogue sword.
Yeah, the only problem with it is you have to deal with the absurd mana cost of Lethal Mirage, but in theory, you could make it work. So
it looks and it sounds awesome. I love seeing little clips about that. Yeah. For myself, one of my league start, I have absolutely no idea. the kinds of things that I have on my mind are Spark Charge, Static Orb, because I'm a Spark Charge enjoyer. As an aside,
Imagine if that just didn't work. Imagine if that just didn't work.
what would I play? I don't know. I'd play some other sorc build instead. I'd find something else to do. But I love Spark Charges, and I firmly believe that if anyone out there has not played Spark Charges, do it. Whatever Spark Charge variation you want to play, go try it out. They're all amazing. The other kinds of builds that I've been interested in, I'm actually thinking about like Forged Weapon, Forge Guard, because the new Forged Weapon stuff looks good. You can try out, what was it? Warpath with the Polaris Sword, casting Smite on melee hit, because that sounds awesome as a Paladin. Your defense would be a little bit low. Maybe you can just build a bunch of life and hope that your damage is high enough anyways. But that looks really good. I love the idea of smell.
No,
sorry,
Mom got giga buffed. Mom got giga buffed. Like, if you are a Mom enjoyer, you're good. Just continue, please. Just continue.
Can somebody else is going to clip that for me? Mom buff. Okay,
Yeah.
so those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about. Like, honestly, maybe Warpath, maybe something with Spark Charges. I think there was another build that I was interested in as well, but at some point for like a second or third character.
Imagine playing Mom on your Healing Hands Rive build. Like, imagine playing the helmet with Mom and just getting the Rive affix for the Mom on it. Or like playing Fireball or Rune Bolt with the mana mod on it and playing Mom with it. It's like,
oh, it's so good. So it looks really, really nice. I have no idea what I'm gonna play. The things that I'm interested for, I want to play a Vessel of Strife build. Vessel of Strife tends to be like a high-end, high investment kind of thing, so maybe I'll farm one up first and then go figure out what I want to play with it. But Vessel of Strife being a way to generate like kind of hybrid builds, like you have 2,000 life, maybe 4,000 ward, sounds like a great way to explore like the new ward system and like the new ward decay formula. So that's something that I'm looking forward to. I guess to finish this out, let's just briefly touch on Mom. So maybe you're not a Path of Exile player, maybe you don't know what buff Mom is all about. Mom is mind over matter in the world of Path of Exile. For us here in Last Epoch, it's called damage dealt to men before health, because we don't get cool acronyms over here. We have a new helmet that drops from question mark, so it probably drops from the very new endgame boss that's being released. And it's got like damage dealt to men before health, but it's a class agnostic base type. So you can use it on anyone instead of only using it on a mage. So before, it's only been mage, but now you can do it with, Rive or Vengeance generating mana on hits. You could use it with Warlock can restore mana with like Chaos Bolts or something. Like, you have lots of other ways.
By the way, this is something interesting. Speaking of the Mom discussion,
Go on.
I didn't know this, okay? But apparently, with Channeled Fireball, you can run the % chance to gain mana on Fireball, by the way. You can run that. I didn't know this. That should be insane, by the way. Like, it might actually make Channeled Fireball playable because you can just face tank everything because with the Mom stuff, right?
Interesting.
Because like you're getting like 20 mana per hit or whatever, or however much it ends up being.
As long
and then
as
you
we're
can
talking,
run mana regen while channeling too. Continue.
If Twitch chat, if Rage counts as mana, then the mind over matter stuff should work as a transform primalist. It probably does.
Why do we have to have this discussion? Why is it just obvious? I hate it.
No, it does. They've told us in the past that for all intents and purposes, except for one, Rage is the exact same as mana.
All right, cool. Then I can play my Mom Werebear. All right,
and cool. you can get like Rage gain on crit and Rage gain on hit and Rage gain all the time. You can sustain your huge.
Speaking of Super Cock Werebear. Oh my god, that's another build I'm gonna play. You play Polaris, you play the Meteor Belt, you play the Tornado Gloves, you literally just use everything. And use like the Avalanche Boulders because they got buffed to 400% effectiveness on your idols, even though you don't have the tree on it. Like Super Cock Werebear is gonna be amazing. Yes, I know the implications of the word. I don't care. I'm calling it that.
All right, cool. The last thing that I want to compliment EHG on, other than their super cock builds, is the addition of some amazing unique items. I mentioned before that I'm going to have a build contest coming up. Less than a week from now, we're starting the build contest. and we're going to have to decide which unique item to use. And they're awesome. Like we just talked about this Mind Over
Well,
Matter
they even managed
helmet.
to make the bad ones look interesting.
Well, so there's a new chess piece called Wall of Nothing, which says like your endurance threshold applies to your ward threshold. That's super interesting to build around. There's all kinds of things that don't necessarily give you power, but they give you avenues for building your character in a different way, which is exactly the kind of thing that I want to encourage people to experiment with when they're checking out like new unique items in a new patch. Like this is gonna be so fucking good. I'm so excited.
Like even the fear gloves.
Yeah, they're like level 4 gloves.
They're just interesting. Like, and like maybe one day, maybe there's a way of utilizing fear properly or something. Like, ooh, cast this when you fear an enemy or whatever.
Or
that would
against
make those
feared
gloves,
enemies, like more damage against feared enemies and wandering spirits, for example. Sure.
Yeah, that would make that viable for use. And even the crab one, having a minion you can spawn on a cooldown,
Hold on. Did you see the movement speed modifier?
Yes, I saw it. They're insane. Yeah. Like you can run the carcination of momentum on like, I know it sounds crazy, but you can actually run that on Hungering Souls to get an extra minion without having to spec a slot for it.
That's a great
and
idea
then
too.
You just cast it before you go and DPS down the boss, right?
I like it. And the crab, most importantly, has 1,000% movement speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Zoomer crab.
It's a fast fucking crab.
There's so many uniques we could keep talking about. But we should probably
we're gonna cut it off. I think we've had a wonderful conversation. This has gone on for just over an hour and a half. Just around an hour and a half. This is our very first podcast for Rat City Radio. It's episode 46 of our podcast altogether, but episode 1 of the new rebranding. So Twitch chat, thank you so much for enjoying us here. Thank you for participating and asking questions. If you're watching on YouTube and Spotify after the fact, make sure to let us know where you're watching so we can make sure that your viewing experience and listening experience is as good as possible, because we want to make sure that your content is what you want it to be. Dread, thank you as always for being here. I appreciate having your time. And we'll talk to you.
Anytime. I'm excited to talk to Mike. Talk to Mike.
Talk to. Friendly conversation, Dread.
Friendly interrogation, yes.
Friendly interrogation. We'll see you next time.